I was born into a world where love was a currency, and money was the only thing that truly mattered. My mother, a woman whose dreams had long since withered into bitter ambition, saw me not as a daughter but as an investment. Ever since my father left us, she was consumed with the idea that wealth was the only thing that could save us, and I was the key to obtaining it. She raised me with one purpose: to marry rich, to secure a life where she would never feel powerless again. My childhood was filled with lectures about securing a good future, warnings about never falling for a man who couldn't provide, and constant reminders that love was a privilege only fools believed in. I remember the first time she mentioned marriage to me. I was barely 16 and she had already started looking for potential suitors. "Love fades, Emma," she would say, her eyes hollow from years of struggling. "But money? Money is forever." I didn't argue then. I didn't know how. But deep inside, a quiet rebellion was brewing, a longing for something more than what she could ever understand. I used to dream of love stories, the kind where the girl met someone who saw her for who she really was. Someone who made her heart race, who made her laugh without restraint, who held her in the middle of a storm and made her feel safe. But in my mother's world, love was a liability. It made people weak. It made them vulnerable. And she would not allow me to be weak. Then one day she found him, Damien Blackwood, a millionaire heir with a family name that could open any door. He was older, refined, and had a smile that never reached his eyes. My mother nearly wept with joy when he expressed interest in me. To her it was fate. To me it was a nightmare in the making. The moment she told me I was to be engaged to him, my heart plummeted. "You should be grateful," she snapped when I protested. "Do you know how many girls would kill for this opportunity?" Grateful? For what? For being sold to a man who didn't know me, didn't love me, didn't care about anything but the social image of having a young, obedient wife by his side? I wanted to scream, but I knew it was useless. My mother wasn't listening. She never did. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about all the things I would lose. My freedom. My choices. My heart. And worst of all, I thought about Noah. Noah. My best friend. My first love. The boy with the softest eyes and the warmest hands. The only one who had ever made me feel safe. I met Noah when I was 9 years old. He lived just a few houses away and we became inseparable from the moment we met. He was the one who held my hand when my father walked out the door. He was the one who whispered promises of adventure when my mother locked me inside the house to focus on my studies. He was the one who knew me. Really knew me. And the thought of losing him forever felt like drowning. But I had no say in my fate. My mother had already decided. The following weeks were a blur of preparations. My mother met with wedding planners, designers, jewelers. My engagement to Damien Blackwood was to be the grand event of the season. Every day I was forced to smile, to nod, to wear dresses that felt like cages and sit in rooms filled with people who only saw me as a transaction. I tried to resist. I begged my mother to reconsider. But she was relentless. "Do you think I had a choice when I married your father?" She spat one evening, her voice cold and sharp. "Do you think life is about love? It's about survival, Emma. And I won't let you make the same mistakes I did." "But you were miserable." I shot back, my chest heaving with frustration. "You spent years trapped in a marriage you hated. And now you want the same for me?" She stared at me for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression. Then finally she sighed, rubbing her temples. "It's different," she muttered. "Damien is wealthy. He can take care of you. He can give you a life I never had." I wanted to tell her that I didn't need that life. That all I needed was to be free. But I knew she wouldn't understand. And so, little by little, I felt my world close in around me. Then came the dinner. The night when Damien and I were formally introduced. I still remember the way he looked at me like I was something to be acquired. A rare piece of art, an object of value, but nothing more. "My fiancé," he said smoothly, lifting his glass in a toast. "You're even lovelier than I imagined." His voice was deep, confident, practiced. Everything about him was calculated. He was used to getting what he wanted. And now he wanted me. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting in knots. My mother, seated beside me, beamed with pride. "You'll make a beautiful bride," she whispered. I wanted to scream. Instead, I lowered my gaze, pretending to be the obedient daughter she wanted. That night I snuck out of the house. I found Noah waiting by the old oak tree where we used to meet. His face lit up when he saw me, But the moment he noticed the despair in my eyes, his smile faded. "What happened?" he asked, stepping closer. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's happening," I whispered. "The engagement. The wedding. Everything." His hands curled into fists. "Emma, you don't have to do this. You don't have to." "I don't have a choice," I interrupted, my voice breaking. He exhaled sharply, his jaw clenched. "There's always a choice. Not in my world. Not with my mother." But as I looked at him, at the way his eyes burned with determination, I felt something stir inside me. Hope. A dangerous, reckless hope. "Run away with me," he whispered. My breath caught in my throat. Run away. It was impossible. It was insane. But for the first time in my life, I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could escape the fate my mother had planned for me, even if it meant risking everything. Noah had always been there, like the sun rising every morning, like the wind whispering through the trees, like the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat. He wasn't just my best friend, he was the only person who ever truly saw me, the only one who understood me beyond the polished facade my mother forced me to wear. We grew up together, two lost souls in a world that tried to shape us into something we weren't. Where my mother saw me as a tool for ambition, Noah saw me as a person. A girl with dreams, with fears, with a heart that longed for something real. I remember the first time I realized I loved him. It wasn't in a grand moment of revelation. It wasn't during one of our countless adventures sneaking away to the lake or lying under the stars, whispering about the future. It was something quieter, something that had always been there, waiting for me to notice. It was in the way his hand would linger on mine when we said goodbye. In the way he would always make sure to walk on the side of the road closest to traffic, as if shielding me from an invisible danger. In the way his voice softened when he spoke my name. But love had no place in the life my mother had carved out for me. I was meant for something else. Something cold and calculated. "You need to forget about him," my mother had said once when she caught me sneaking out to see Noah. "He's a nobody. He can't give you the life you deserve." But she was wrong. Noah gave me everything that mattered, his kindness, his loyalty, his heart. And yet, no matter how much I loved him, I knew the world would never allow us to be together. After the dinner where I had been paraded in front of Damien like a prize, I had fled to Noah. I had told him everything. About the engagement. The wedding. The life I was being forced into. He had listened in silence, his jaw tight, his fists clenched at his sides. And then, with a desperation I had never heard in his voice before, he had said the words that changed everything. "Run away with me." The words hung between us, electric and dangerous. My pulse pounded in my ears. Run away. Leave everything behind. My mother, my home, the life I had known. It was impossible. Wasn't it? But when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. And for the first time I allowed myself to consider it. What if they find us? I whispered. Then we'll keep running. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to throw myself into his arms and say yes, to leave behind the cold, suffocating world my mother had built for me and start over. But reality was cruel. "They'll never let me go," I said, my voice trembling. "My mother. Damien, they have too much power. Then we fight." I let out a soft, broken laugh. "You make it sound so easy. It's not." He took my hands in his warmth seeping into my frozen skin. "But what's the alternative? A life where you're trapped in a loveless marriage? Where you spend every day pretending to be someone you're not?" He shook his head. "That's not living, Emma. That's surviving." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "And what if we fail?" He cupped my face, his thumb brushing away a tear before it could fall. "Then at least we tried. At least you'll know you fought for yourself." For a long moment I said nothing. The world felt still, as if waiting for my answer. And then finally I whispered, "Okay." A slow, relieved smile spread across his face. "Okay." I nodded. "Okay." We didn't have a plan. We didn't know where we would go. But at that moment none of it mattered. Because for the first time in my life I was choosing something for myself. But fate had never been kind to me. And I should have known. Nothing worth having ever came without a price. The morning of the announcement felt like a funeral. I woke up to the sound of my mother's voice, sharp and commanding as she barked orders to the house staff. The entire mansion was buzzing with preparations. The engagement party would be held that evening, an extravagant event where I would be officially presented as Damien Blackwood's fiancée. The guest list included business moguls, politicians, and celebrities, all eager to witness the unholy union of wealth and power. I felt numb as I sat at my vanity, watching my reflection in the mirror as a team of stylists transformed me into the perfect bride-to-be. My hair was styled into elegant waves, my face painted into an illusion of perfection. I barely recognized myself. "Stunning," my mother said from the doorway, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. "Damien will be pleased." I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth. Please. Like I was nothing more than a product being delivered. My hands clenched into fists in my lap. I wanted to scream, to tear the expensive silk dress off my body and run as far away as I could. But I couldn't, not yet. Because Noah and I had a plan. After our conversation under the oak tree, we had spent every stolen moment whispering about our escape. We would leave after the engagement party, slipping away while my mother and Damien were distracted. Noah had secured train tickets to a city where no one knew us, where we could start over. It wasn't much, but it was hope. It was freedom. All I had to do was endure this one last night. But nothing ever went as planned. The engagement party was a dazzling affair, a sickening display of wealth and influence. The ballroom was bathed in golden light, the sound of champagne glasses clinking and murmured conversations filling the air. Guests in designer gowns and tailored suits circled me like vultures, their smiles polite but calculating. Damien stood beside me, his hand resting possessively on my waist. I could feel the weight of his touch, cold and heavy. "Smile," he murmured, his lips barely moving. "You're making us look bad." I forced myself to lift my lips into a practiced smile, but my entire body was rigid. I scanned the room, searching for Noah. He had promised he would be there, watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment. I just had to hold on a little longer. Then my mother stepped onto the stage at the center of the ballroom, tapping her champagne flute with a silver spoon. The room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice dripping with triumph. "It is with great joy that I announce the engagement of my beloved daughter Emma, to the esteemed Damien Blackwood." A wave of applause rippled through the crowd. My stomach churned. Damien turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Time to seal the deal." Before I could react, he took my hand and slid a massive diamond ring onto my finger. The weight of it felt suffocating. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for the world to see. I felt like I was drowning. Then across the room I saw him. Noah. He was standing near the entrance, his face pale, his fists clenched at his sides. Our eyes locked. And in that moment I knew something was wrong. The plan. Something had gone wrong. Before I could move, I felt Damien's grip tighten around my hand. Then he leaned in and whispered, "If you're thinking about running, I'd reconsider." A chill ran down my spine. He knew. I couldn't breathe. The weight of Damien's words clung to me like a noose tightening around my throat. He knew. Somehow, someway he had found out about the plan. About Noah. About my desire to escape. My fingers trembled as I looked up at him. His grip on my hand was firm, his expression carefully composed for the onlookers, but his eyes, his cold, calculating eyes, told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful. And power meant control. My mind raced. Had he followed me? Had someone seen Noah and me together? Had my mother told him? I forced myself to stay composed, to swallow down the panic clawing at my throat. Not here. Not now. With a smile that barely reached my lips, I leaned in just enough for my voice to be heard over the chatter. "I don't know what you're talking about." Damien chuckled, the sound low and dangerous. "Oh, Emma. Don't insult me." His hand slid around my waist, holding me in place as he continued, "Your little friend made a mistake. He got careless." My blood ran cold. "Noah. What did you do?" I hissed under my breath. Damien squeezed my waist, a silent warning. "Nothing, yet. But if you try to run, if you make a scene..." He let the threat hang between us. "Let's just say accidents happen all the time." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shove him away, to rip off the suffocating engagement ring and run straight into Noah's arms. But I couldn't. Not when Noah's life was on the line. Not when Damien had the power to destroy everything. I had no choice. So I played along. For the rest of the night I smiled, I laughed, I allowed Damien to parade me around like a trophy. But inside I was unraveling. And my mother, God, my mother. She watched me like a hawk, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. She had won. When the last of the guests left and the ballroom emptied, I turned to her, my hands shaking. You told him? She didn't even flinch. Of course I did. I clenched my jaw. How could you? She sighed, exasperated, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. Because Emma, I knew you'd try something reckless. And I won't let you ruin this. This? My voice cracked. You mean my life? She rolled her eyes. Stop being dramatic. Damien is a good match for you. He's wealthy, he's powerful. He's controlling. He's dangerous. I took a step closer, my entire body trembling. You don't care about me. You never have. You just want the life you lost. Her expression darkened. You have no idea what I've sacrificed for you. Sacrificed? I let out a bitter laugh. You're sacrificing me. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? No. That would be too much to hope for. I did what I had to, she said finally. And you'll thank me one day. Never, I spat. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Then, with an eerie calmness, she said, Then I suppose I'll have to ensure you don't make any foolish decisions. A shiver ran down my spine. Before I could demand what she meant, she turned and walked away. The moment she disappeared, I bolted for my room. I needed to see Noah. I needed to know he was okay. But the second I reached the door, I stopped cold. 2 men in black suits stood guard outside my room. Trapped. I was trapped. Panic surged through me. I couldn't run. I couldn't fight. I had played my last card and now I was a prisoner in my own home. I sank to the floor, my heart pounding. Noah. I had to find a way to reach him. Before it was too late. I spent the entire night pacing in my room, my mind racing for a way out. The weight of the engagement ring on my finger felt suffocating, like a shackle that bound me to a fate I didn't choose. Outside my door, the 2 men stood guard, their presence a silent warning. I wasn't going anywhere. By morning, exhaustion clung to my body, but my mind refused to rest. I needed to find Noah. I needed to know he was safe. But before I could come up with a plan, a knock echoed through the room. I turned just as the door creaked open. Damien. He walked in without waiting for permission, his tailored suit impeccable, his presence suffocating. Good morning, fiancé, he drawled, shutting the door behind him. I stiffened. What do you want? He smirked, sauntering across the room as if he owned it. Come now, Emma. Is that any way to greet your future husband? I clenched my fist. You'll never be my husband. His smile didn't waver, but something dark flickered in his eyes. Is that so? He took a slow step forward, closing the distance between us. I refused to back away. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. You think you have a choice, he murmured, reaching out to brush a loose strand of hair from my face. I jerked away and his smirk widened. That's cute. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm. I'm not afraid of you. His expression shifted just for a second. And then he laughed. No, I don't suppose you are. Not yet. A chill ran down my spine. Damien exhaled as if bored. You know, Emma, I don't particularly enjoy forcing things. I prefer when people comply willingly. I swallowed. Then let me go. His jaw ticked, but he masked it with an easy grin. That's not going to happen. I crossed my arms, summoning every ounce of defiance I had left. Then you're wasting your time. Because no matter how many guards you put outside my door, no matter how many threats you make, I'll never love you. For the first time, the smile disappeared. His eyes darkened, his expression unreadable. Then without warning, he grabbed my wrist. Not hard. Not enough to leave a bruise. But firm enough that I couldn't pull away. Love? He murmured, tilting his head slightly. Who said anything about love? My blood ran cold. Let's get something straight, sweetheart. His grip tightened slightly, his voice dropping to something just above a whisper. This isn't about love. This is about control. I stared at him, my heart hammering. He leaned in, his lips just inches from my ear. And you, my dear, are already mine. I yanked my wrist free, stepping back. I'll never be yours. His eyes flickered with something dangerous. But instead of anger, he simply smiled. It was that smile that scared me the most. Say what you want, he said smoothly, adjusting his cufflinks. But I suggest you start accepting your reality. Because whether you like it or not, the wedding is happening. I clenched my jaw. And what if I refuse? Damien exhaled, feigning disappointment. I was hoping you'd be more cooperative. He turned toward the door but paused, his hand resting on the handle. But don't worry. You'll come around. He looked at me over his shoulder, his smirk returning. Everyone has a breaking point. And then he was gone. I stood frozen in place, his words echoing in my mind. My hands curled into fists. He thought he could break me. He thought he had won. But he was wrong. Because if I couldn't run, I would fight. The walls of my world were closing in, suffocating me with each passing hour. My mother had made sure I was under strict surveillance, and Damien's warning still echoed in my head. There was no escaping him. But that didn't mean I had given up. For the past day I searched desperately for a way out, but every door was locked, every window monitored, every conversation laced with underlying threats. My mother barely spoke to me now, as if I were no longer her daughter but a transaction awaiting completion. Then just as I was about to lose hope, something shifted in the air. A sound. A faint, almost imperceptible rustling outside my window. I froze. My heart pounded against my ribs as I crept toward the glass. The heavy curtains barely moved, but as I pulled them aside I saw him. Noah. I gasped softly, pressing a hand over my mouth. He was crouched just beyond the window, his familiar brown eyes filled with urgency. The dim light from the street lamp cast shadows over his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw, the determination in his gaze. I hurriedly unlatched the window, opening it just enough to whisper, "Noah, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous." "I had to see you," he murmured, scanning my face as if memorizing every detail. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, my voice shaking. "Damien knows about us. He's watching me, he's keeping me trapped." His jaw tightened. "I know." I inhaled sharply. "What do you mean you know?" "He sent someone to warn me," he said, voice low and steady. "They didn't do anything, but the message was clear. I'm supposed to stay away from you." A cold chill ran down my spine. Noah leaned in closer. "Emma, listen to me. We don't have much time. We need to leave tonight." My stomach twisted. "Noah, if we run, they'll come after us." "Let them." His hand reached for mine through the window, his fingers brushing against my skin. "I'd rather spend my life running with you than let them take you away." Tears burned in my eyes. "Noah, we can do this," he insisted. "We'll disappear. Start over. Somewhere far away where no one can find us." My heart ached at the sincerity in his voice. But reality pressed in like a crushing weight. Damien is too powerful. My mother, she won't stop until she gets what she wants. "Then we fight," he said fiercely. "Together." I gripped his hands tightly, feeling the warmth of him, the steady presence that had been my anchor for so many years. "I love you," he whispered. A lump formed in my throat. "I love you too." But just as the words left my lips, something changed. A noise behind me. Footsteps. I stiffened. Noah's expression turned urgent. "Emma. Go," I whispered frantically. "Now." His fingers hesitated, but he saw the fear in my eyes. He nodded. And then he was gone. I turned just as the door opened. "Damien." He stood in the doorway, his gaze flickering from me to the open window. Something dangerous glinted in his eyes. That was a mistake. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I had been caught. Before I could react, my mother's voice rang out from behind him. "It's time to leave." My heart pounded. "What?" She stepped into view, her expression unreadable. "We're moving up the wedding. You leave tonight." "No," I took a step back. Damien sighed as if this were all terribly inconvenient. "Emma, don't make this harder than it has to be." "I'm not going anywhere," I snapped, my nails digging into my palms. My mother simply nodded toward the door. "Take her." 2 security guards stepped inside. Panic surged through me. "No. You can't do this." But my protests fell on deaf ears. Damien gave me one last smirk before turning away. And just like that I was taken. Away from my home. Away from Noah. Away from the life I had desperately fought to keep. The world outside the window blurred into a passing landscape of unfamiliar cities, vast stretches of empty roads, and towering estates I had never seen before. My mother had arranged for me to be taken to a private location. A sprawling mansion nestled deep in the countryside, far from anyone who might help me. Far from Noah. The days leading up to the wedding were a haze. My mother visited sparingly, each time bringing a carefully curated list of preparations. The dress fittings, the floral arrangements, the guest list, all designed to create the perfect illusion of happiness. Damien, on the other hand, made his presence known. Every morning he arrived at my door with the same smug expression, the same carefully chosen words. "Counting down the days, fiancé?" he would say, as if this was something to be celebrated. I didn't respond. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. By the time the wedding day arrived, the weight of it all had settled deep into my bones. I stood in front of the floor-length mirror in the bridal suite, staring at the reflection of a woman I barely recognized. The gown was exquisite, white silk, embroidered with delicate gold thread, cinched at the waist with a bodice designed to be as elegant as it was restrictive. A tiara rested atop my head, its diamonds glinting under the soft chandelier light. It should have been a dream. Instead, it was my prison. A knock at the door. My mother entered, dressed in deep emerald, the color of control. She studied me for a long moment before stepping closer. "You look beautiful," she said quietly. I didn't respond. Her gaze softened just slightly. "I know you don't want this, Emma. But sometimes we don't get to choose the life we live." I turned toward her, my voice hollow. "You did this to me." A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. "I gave you a future. You took away my freedom." She sighed, reaching out to adjust a strand of my hair. "One day you'll understand." I jerked away. "I understand perfectly. You're marrying me off like a business deal. That's all I am to you." For the first time she hesitated. "It's more complicated than that." "Is it?" I scoffed. "Because from where I'm standing it's pretty simple. You wanted power. Damien wanted a wife. And I was the easiest way to get both." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm trying to protect you." "No," I whispered. "You're protecting yourself." She didn't deny it. A knock interrupted the moment. One of the wedding coordinators peeked inside. "It's time." My stomach twisted. My mother straightened, smoothing down the fabric of her dress. "Come along, Emma." I didn't move. Her expression hardened. "Don't make a scene." "Not today." With a deep breath, I turned toward the mirror one last time. Then, with the weight of inevitability pressing against my shoulders, I followed her out the door. The ceremony was held in an extravagant ballroom, adorned with cascading white roses, gold-trimmed drapes, and chandeliers that shimmered under the soft glow of candlelight. The guests were seated in perfect rows, their murmured conversations dying down as the music began to play. I stood at the entrance, my hands curled into fists at my sides. Damien waited at the end of the aisle, his expression unreadable. He was dressed in an impeccable black suit, his posture confident, assured, like a man who had already won. My mother was seated in the front row, watching me closely. The room felt like it was closing in. My legs felt heavy as I took the first step forward. Then another. And another. Each step brought me closer to a future I didn't want. A life I didn't choose. I tried to focus, tried to quiet the panic rising in my chest, but all I could think about was him. Noah. His voice, his touch, the way he had promised me we would escape together. But he wasn't here. I was alone. And there was no one left to save me. Damien extended his hand as I reached the altar. I hesitated. The officiant cleared his throat. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of..." A loud bang echoed through the hall. The doors burst open. Gasps filled the room. My heart stopped. And then I saw him. Noah. He stood at the entrance, his chest rising and falling rapidly, his eyes locked on mine. Everything else faded. The music. The guests. My mother's shocked expression. Damien's slow, simmering anger. Nothing mattered. Because for the first time in weeks I could breathe. And I knew without a doubt, this wasn't over. The world around me froze. The whispered murmurs of the guests blurred into white noise. The flickering candlelight cast long, wavering shadows across the marble floor. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stared at Noah, standing at the entrance of the grand ballroom. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, his eyes locked onto mine with unwavering determination. My mother's sharp inhale cut through the silence. Damien, beside me, remained motionless, his fingers curling slightly at his sides. The officiant awkwardly cleared his throat, glancing between us as if unsure whether to continue. I should have been terrified. But all I felt was hope. Noah had come for me. He hadn't given up. He hadn't let Damien's threats stop him. Neither would I. The weight of my decision pressed down on me. If I stayed, I would be bound to a life I didn't choose, tied to a man who saw me as nothing more than an asset. If I ran, I would be walking straight into uncertainty, into a future that held no guarantees, except for one. Noah would be by my side. I turned to Damien, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I can't do this. His jaw tensed. Emma. I don't love you, I said firmly. I never did. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother shot up from her seat. Emma, don't. I'm sorry, I said, turning toward her. But this isn't my life. It's yours. And I won't live in it anymore. Damien exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders back as he looked down at me. You're making a mistake. No, I whispered. I'm finally making the right choice. And then without another word I ran. The gasps of the guests turned into shouts. My mother called my name, but I didn't stop. My heels echoed against the marble floor as I sprinted down the aisle, my gown billowing behind me. Noah met me halfway. His hands found mine, fingers lacing together like they always belonged there. Are you sure? He asked, voice breathless. I nodded. Let's go. And we ran. The grand doors swung open behind us as we stumbled out into the cool evening air. The sky was painted in hues of deep indigo, stars beginning to flicker awake. My heart pounded not from fear but from the exhilaration of freedom. Noah didn't let go of my hand as we darted down the steps, weaving between parked cars and startled guests. My wedding dress made it difficult to move, but I didn't care. Over here. Noah tugged me toward the side entrance of the estate where a car sat idling. We barely made it inside before the sound of rushing footsteps followed us. Drive. Noah shouted to the driver. The tires screeched against the pavement as the car lurched forward. I turned, breathless, looking out the back window. Damien stood at the top of the steps, watching us disappear into the night. He didn't chase after us. He didn't call out. He simply stood there. And something about the way he smiled sent a shiver down my spine. But I didn't have time to think about that now. Noah squeezed my hand. We did it. A laugh, real, unrestrained, bubbled out of me. We did. For the first time in a long time I felt light. Unburdened. But deep down I knew this wasn't the end. Damien wasn't the type to let things go. And my mother, she wouldn't forgive me for this. But no matter what happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free. And I would never go back. The car sped down the winding roads, the mansion shrinking in the distance behind us. My breath came in short, uneven bursts, my heart still hammering against my ribs. I glanced at Noah, his grip on the steering wheel tight, his knuckles white. We had done it. We had escaped. But the weight of what I had just done, of what I had just lost, settled over me like a heavy fog. The wedding was ruined. My mother would never forgive me. Damien. I didn't even want to think about what he was planning. But as I looked out at the vast open road stretching before us, a feeling stronger than fear bloomed in my chest. Freedom. I reached over and placed my hand over Noah's. He finally looked at me, his eyes softening. You okay? I let out a shaky breath. I don't know. But I know I couldn't stay there. He nodded, squeezing my fingers gently. We'll figure this out. Together. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. The city lights flickered in the distance as we approached a small motel on the outskirts of town. Noah pulled into the parking lot, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. We should lay low for the night. Get some rest. I nodded, exhaustion crashing over me all at once. The adrenaline that had fueled my escape was wearing off, leaving me drained. We checked into a small room, the dim glow of the bedside lamp casting long shadows on the walls. The air smelled of old wood and faded lavender, a stark contrast to the luxurious world I had just left behind. But I didn't miss the grand chandeliers or the silk sheets. I didn't miss the cold marble floors or the suffocating expectations. Here in this tiny motel room I felt more alive than I had in years. Noah sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair. We need a plan. I nodded, sitting beside him. We can't go back. Ever. I know. He exhaled deeply. But Damien, he's not the kind of guy who just lets things go. A chill ran down my spine. You think he'll come after us? Noah hesitated. I don't think. I know. Silence stretched between us. I could still picture Damien standing on the steps of that mansion watching us escape. He hadn't run after us. He hadn't shouted. But the way he had smiled, it haunted me. "We have to disappear," I said firmly. "Change our names, leave the city, start over somewhere far away." Noah nodded. "Agreed. I have some money saved up. It's not much, but it'll get us out of here." I looked down at my hands, the engagement ring still glinting on my finger. Without hesitation, I slipped it off and placed it on the bedside table. The diamond caught the light for a moment before settling into stillness. A symbol of everything I was leaving behind. "We should get some rest," Noah murmured, his voice soft. I nodded, but as I lay down, staring at the ceiling, sleep refused to come. Somewhere out there, my mother was furious. Damien was waiting. And I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But for now I was free. And I would fight to keep it. The morning light seeped through the thin curtains, casting a golden hue over the small motel room. For the first time in weeks, I woke up without feeling like I was suffocating. The air was different here, lighter, filled with endless possibilities. Noah was already awake, sitting on the chair near the window, his fingers drumming against the table in quiet thought. "Morning," I murmured, stretching my sore limbs. He turned to me, offering a small smile. "Morning." For a brief moment it felt like nothing had changed. Like we were just two kids sneaking out of town for an adventure. But reality settled in quickly. We weren't on an adventure. We were fugitives from the life I had abandoned. And I had no idea what came next. Noah slid a paper across the table toward me. "I made a list of places we can go. Somewhere far enough where Damien won't find us." I swallowed. The weight of our situation pressed down on me. "Do you really think he'll come after us?" Noah's jaw tightened. "I don't think, Emma." "I know." A chill ran through me. Damien wasn't the kind of man who accepted failure. He was used to getting what he wanted. And I had just humiliated him in front of the most powerful people he knew. Noah stood and grabbed the duffel bag he had packed. "We need to move fast. The longer we stay in one place, the easier it is for him to track us." I nodded, throwing on a hoodie over my dress. "Where are we going?" "There's a bus station a few miles from here. We take the first bus out, get as far away as possible." It was a fragile plan, but it was the best we had. We checked out of the motel, keeping our heads low as we walked toward the main road. The world felt both impossibly vast and suffocatingly small. Every passing car, every stranger's glance made me feel exposed. We reached the bus station just as the sun fully rose. The place was nearly empty, a handful of early travelers waiting for their rides. Noah pulled me into a quiet corner, checking the schedules. "There's a bus heading west in 15 minutes. It's not ideal, but it'll get us out of here." I nodded, wrapping my arms around myself. The anxiety clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to breathe. Then, just as we stepped forward to buy the tickets, a voice stopped us in our tracks. "Going somewhere?" My blood turned to ice. Fully I turned. Standing near the entrance of the station was a man in a sleek black suit. He wasn't Damien, but I recognized him. One of his people. Noah immediately stepped in front of me. "We're leaving. You can't stop us." The man smirked. "That's not up to me." I grabbed Noah's hand, my pulse hammering. "We need to go. Now." But before we could take another step, two more men appeared at the other side of the station. We were trapped. My breath came in quick, shallow bursts. "Oh, not now. Not when we were so close." The first man took a step forward. "Damien sends his regards." Panic shot through me. Noah squeezed my hand. "Run." Without hesitation we bolted. We wove through the station, dodging confused passengers and startled workers. My heart thundered in my chest as we pushed through the emergency exit and onto the side street. A car screeched nearby. Noah pulled me down an alleyway, our feet pounding against the pavement. I didn't dare look back. All I knew was that we had to keep moving. Because if Damien had already found us once, he would find us again. And this time I wasn't sure if we'd escape. The city blurred past us as we ran. The adrenaline coursing through my veins drowned out everything. My pounding heart, my labored breaths, the distant sounds of footsteps chasing us. The only thing that mattered was escaping. Noah pulled me through another alley, his grip tight but reassuring. "Keep going," he urged, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. We finally broke into a less crowded street, our lungs burning. A taxi slowed down nearby, the driver eyeing us warily. Without hesitation, Noah yanked open the door and shoved me inside before climbing in after me. Drive, he told the driver. Anywhere but here. The man hesitated for a split second before nodding and pulling into traffic. As the car sped away from the bus station, I finally exhaled. My body slumped against the seat, the tension momentarily easing. But I knew it wasn't over. Noah ran a hand through his hair, his eyes scanning the streets. That was too close. I nodded, still catching my breath. They found us faster than I expected. Noah's jaw clenched. Damien's got people everywhere. He's not just letting this go. I swallowed hard. I knew he was right. Damien had influence, money, and connections. And worst of all, he had my mother. The thought made my stomach churn. I had spent years trying to earn her approval, trying to understand her. But now she had made her choice. And it wasn't me. The taxi took us further into the city, winding through unfamiliar streets. Noah finally spoke. We need to stop running. I frowned. What do you mean? We can't keep hiding forever. Damien will just keep sending people after us. We need to end this. A shiver ran through me. How? Noah's eyes darkened. We confront them. The very thought made my pulse spike. That's insane. You saw what happened back there. We barely escaped. Exactly. He turned to face me fully. Emma, this doesn't stop unless we make it stop. We need leverage. Something that forces Damien and your mother to back off. I hesitated, fear gripping my chest. And if we fail? Noah's hand found mine, his thumb brushing against my skin. Then we fight. I inhaled shakily, my mind racing. Could we really do this? Face them head on. I had spent my entire life letting others decide my fate. First my mother, then Damien. It had to end. I met Noah's gaze, my resolve solidifying. Let's end this. We arranged the meeting at one of Damien's private estates. A neutral ground. We knew we couldn't just walk into his world unprepared, so we did what we had to. We found something to use against him. Leverage. With a little digging, Noah and I uncovered information Damien had spent years keeping buried. Business deals that weren't exactly legal. Transactions that could ruin his reputation. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to give us a fighting chance. When we arrived at the estate, my mother was already there, seated at one end of the grand room. Damien stood beside her, his expression unreadable. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. We need to talk. Damien smirked. Oh, now you want to talk? I ignored him and turned to my mother. Is this what you wanted? To control me so badly that you'd let him hunt me down? She sighed, looking almost tired. Emma, you don't understand. No, I cut in. You don't understand. I am not your pawn. And I am not his. Damien chuckled, slow and deliberate. Brave words, sweetheart. But what exactly do you think you can do? I met his gaze head on. We have information, Damien. Enough to make sure every deal you've ever made falls apart. Walk away and this stays buried. For the first time his smirk faltered. Noah crossed his arms. Or we could just send it all out now. Your choice. The air between us crackled with tension. Then slowly Damien exhaled, a sharp edge to his voice. You're playing a dangerous game. I held my ground. So are you. A long silence stretched between us. Then finally he let out a slow, amused chuckle. Well, he said, adjusting his cuffs. I do enjoy a challenge. He turned to my mother. Your daughter has quite the spine. Pity you never noticed. My mother didn't respond. Damien's gaze flicked back to me. Fine. You want out. You have it. I stiffened. Just like that. He smirked. Oh, Emma. Nothing is just like that. Something about his tone sent a shiver down my spine, but I didn't back down. Noah took my hand. We're leaving. Damien didn't stop us. Neither did my mother. I stole one last glance at her, searching for something, anything, that might tell me she regretted it. But her face was unreadable. So I turned away. And for the first time I walked toward a future that was mine. The moment Noah and I stepped out of that estate, it felt as if the world exhaled with me. The air was crisp, the night sky stretching infinitely above us. But despite the freedom we had just secured, the weight of everything still clung to me like a shadow. Noah squeezed my hand as we walked toward the car. It's over. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But as I glanced back at the looming estate, I knew the truth. This wasn't the kind of battle that ended cleanly. Damien had let us go, but not because he had lost. Guess he was waiting. For what, I didn't know. And my mother, God, my mother. She had let me walk away without a word. No fight, no last attempt to stop me. Just silence. I swallowed the lump in my throat and turned to Noah. What now? He opened the car door for me, his expression softer now. Now we start over. The next few months passed in a blur. We left the city, moving to a small town where no one knew our names, where we could begin again without the weight of our pasts pressing down on us. Noah found a job at a local garage, fixing cars the way he always loved to. I spent my days trying to figure out who I was outside of my mother's control, outside of Damien's world. Some nights I still woke up in a panic, half expecting to find myself locked back in my room, preparing for a wedding that would never happen. But Noah was always there, grounding me, reminding me that I was free. That we had won. But victory never came without scars. I still checked over my shoulder sometimes, half expecting one of Damien's people to appear. I still wondered if my mother ever thought about me, if she regretted what she had done. But with time, the past felt less like a looming storm and more like a distant memory. One evening, as we sat on the back porch of our small home, Noah turned to me, a slow smile playing on his lips. "You seem lighter," he said. I exhaled, staring out at the horizon where the sky melted into the earth. "I think I finally am." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, something familiar. My engagement ring. I stiffened. "Where did you?" "I took it before we left," he admitted. "I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself that we made it out." I stared at the diamond, once a symbol of my imprisonment, now nothing more than a piece of jewelry. Noah held it up to the fading sunlight. "It doesn't own you anymore." I took the ring from him, holding it between my fingers. Then with a deep breath I tossed it into the distance, watching as it disappeared into the grass. Noah chuckled. I was not expecting that. I turned to him, smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. Neither was I. He shifted closer, his warmth settling against mine. "We made it." I leaned into him, letting the weight of the past finally lift. "Yeah," I whispered. "We did. And for the first time in my life I wasn't running. I was home."